Thanks for joining us for the latest edition of Shannons Club TV, where we relive classic road and race memories from Australian motoring history.
In each episode, we uncover the significant factors that made our feature cars stand out and take a road trip with a proud enthusiast.
We'll also get the latest updates from the Shannons auctions team. But right now, let's take a look at the first sports car that could genuinely double as an everyday family car, the Jaguar MkI.
During the desperate period when the British were trying to export their way out of war debt, Jaguar became a national hero. As other British car manufacturers struggled to find markets, the former sidecar manufacturer hit the jackpot. Jaguar's landmark XK120 sports car, with its new and exciting twin-cam 6, was soon followed by special racing versions and a string of victories at Le Mans. The icing on the cake was a sleek sports sedan that looked like a four-door version of Jaguar's sports cars. Introduced as the Jaguar 2.4 in 1955, it was also Jaguar's first unitary body. As export sales boomed in Europe and the US in 1956, it prompted a knighthood for the company's founder, Sir William Lyons. After Jaguar announced the 3.4 litre version in 1957, the Jaguar MkI 3.4, as it was called retrospectively, was one of the world's first muscle cars. Sharing its new engine with the latest XK150 sports car and Jaguar's big Mark 8 limousine, it featured a special inlet manifold, air filter and sump so it could fit under the sleek bonnet. Mark was at the Jag MkI 3.4 more than any other car that helped the sports sedan replace the open sports car as a crowd pleaser in motor racing.
Well, it certainly brought a new level of technical sophistication to touring car racing. Now, here was a car with twin overhead camshafts, four-wheel disc brakes, 200 km/h plus top speeds. I mean, this took something that was basically a world of outlaws to a world-class pedigree category, and within 2 years, they gave it its own national championship. So the MkI was a hugely influential car.
Jaguar intuitively knew how to fine-tune the appearance to reflect its dominating performance. In place of the 2.4's narrow grille was a much wider fine bar grille similar to the XK150 Sports. The cutaway rear spats and twin exhaust not only looked the goods, but there was a menace to the raspy 3.4 exhaust note. Later in 1957, in a classic example of racing improving the breed, Jaguar drew on its D-type race car's domination at Le Mans by offering its pioneering all-wheel disc brakes as an option. Supplied only with the optional wire wheels, the combination was a practical but clever ploy that ensured the new technology was on full view. A fully optioned MkI 3.4 with a close ratio gearbox and overdrive, wire wheels and all-wheel disc brakes was as fast in the 1950s context as any modern muscle car, straight out of the showroom. Because Jaguar took no risks with its first unitary body, it was much stiffer than it needed to be, at least before the mini box sections attracted rust. It left plenty in reserve for racing, and as the MkI 3.4 charted its own distinguished competition career, the improvements quickly filtered back to the road cars. Although it led to Jaguar's definitive Mark II, the MkI 3.4 was the original and therefore purest expression of Jaguar's compact saloons. Yet its revival has almost come too late. Most have since succumbed to a hard life and serious structural rot. What an awesome performance car, Mark, with the bonus of real leather and wood inside. It also seemed to thrive in the rough and ready conditions of early Australian roads and racetracks.
And it was so good that it actually started a revolution in Australian touring car racing. The Jaguar MkI 3.4 was an immediate success in circuit racing and rallying in the UK and Europe. So it was no surprise that the semi-works example driven by David MkI and nicknamed the Grey Pussy proved such a game changer in Australian motorsport when it arrived in 1958. At that time, the highly modified 48 215 and FJ Holdens driven by John French and Leo Gagan were the cars to beat. The Jaguar was heavier than the stripped out humpies, but the combination of its teardrop-like aerodynamics, rigid unitary body, large capacity double overhead cam 6-cylinder engine, superior handling and powerful four-wheel disc brakes more than compensated for any weight handicap. MkI's emphatic victory over the Holdens at Bathurst during the big AGP meeting in October 1958 sent a shockwave through the sport. For here was a basically standard British import, loaded with polished walnut and leather trim, which in its first confrontation with the hottest of hot Holdens made the local heroes seem lukewarm by comparison. Even MkI was stunned by the Jaguar's eerily silent and smooth performance as it whistled down Conrod Straight at more than 200 kilometres an hour, with barely a puff of turbulence from its aerodynamic bodywork. Its performance triggered a dramatic change in the look and sound of Aussie touring car racing, as several top guns soon switched their allegiances to the new British super sedan. Joe, the Jaguar Mark I 3.4, I mean, this thing must have hit local showrooms like a sledgehammer in the 1950s. You had all that luxury and performance in a family-sized four-door. I mean, was there anything like it for the price?
Jaguar started in this market trying to find a niche around the Rover Humber sector, providing a sportier four-door alternative. They didn't realise what a latent market there was. These older guys driving these big Jags suddenly realised that if you could have that performance in a smaller car, this is exactly what everyone wanted. And it was just almost pure chance. They saw this 2.4 take off. Why don't we put the 3.4 engine in there? It was just an amazing combination that almost evolved by accident.
So they established their own niche.
They established their own niche and also enhanced their other car range because it just added so much heritage at a very entry level, and there was a step all the way through for Jaguar from this point on.
Amazing car, wasn't it? MkI continued to enjoy great success in the mighty 3.4, becoming the most successful touring car of its time until his sponsor Ampol decided it had more than achieved its goals and withdrew from the sport, taking its now famous grey pussy Jaguar with it. But MkI wasn't finished yet. He got together with New South Wales Jaguar agent Jack Bryson and ordered another new Mark I 3.4 from the UK. Only this time it was a full works car with all the latest factory tweaks under a brilliant coat of red paint. It was this car which MkI drove to victory in the first Australian Touring Car Championship race held at Orange's New Blah circuit in 1960, against two other Mark Is driven by Queenslander Bill Pitt and Ron Hodgson in MkI's original car, which left the rest of the field far behind them. The Jaguar juggernaut proved unstoppable, with Pitt winning the 1961 Australian Touring Car Championship on his home track at Lowood in Queensland. And when the grey pussy was repainted as the Black Cat during this period, with Pete Gagan behind the wheel, this famous car achieved its greatest successes. By the end of 1962, the reign of the mighty Mark I in local touring car racing was coming to an end. However, the dominance of its replacement, the Jaguar Mark II with Bob Jane at the helm, was already well underway. Don't forget, you can find your favourite car club or event on the Shannons Club website.
My name is Eric. I own this 3.4 1957 Mark I Jaguar, and I've owned it for some 12 years. It came from New South Wales, from the country, and had been left out in the weather, and it was rather dilapidated at that stage, but the sills on the car were rusted out and the bottoms of the doors were all rusted out, and the car was needed to be repainted. We've managed to reconstruct it and get it back in working order again. It involved putting a new engine in it and reboring the engine. We put a D-type camshaft in it so that I could race it originally. I joined the Jaguar Car Club, and every year they have a race at Winton, and I used to take the car up there and race it, and it used to be great fun. The first time I raced it, I got the novice prize for the fastest driver on the day. Yes, I am still racing it. Still a bit of a redhead, I'm afraid. My favourite feature of this car is the appearances of the front, because I like the way the bonnet is shaped, and I like the grille on it, and I like the spotlights, and the overall shape of the car also appeals to me. And I think I first got the idea about it when I saw Dr. Morse on the television with his car, and I thought what a beautiful car it was, and I thought I'd like to own one of those.
Well, Shannon's National Auctions Manager, Chris Borrabon, joins us to talk about all things Jaguar. Welcome to the show again, mate.
Hi, Chris, how are you?
Not too bad.
Chris, the Jag Mark I, it used to be Mark I 2.4, Mark I 3.4. There was a slight premium for the 3.4. We've seen the Mark Is sort of 2.4 stabilised, and we've seen a massive increase in the 3.4. What's going on?
I think as the 3.4 is getting rarer, it definitely has increased massively in value. It's now probably, you'd probably say double, nearly even triple now, the 2.4s. We're just not seeing them today.
So it's not only rarity though that's driving it. What else is happening here? It's almost overtaken the Mark II, hasn't it? Or getting up there.
It's getting towards the Mark II here in Australia. And I think we're seeing in the UK market that actually the Mark I, some of the Mark Is have caught up to the Mark IIs. I think they're rarer to find today, so that's probably brought about the values.
Okay.
And the racing heritage, I mean, we've talked about how successful the Mark I was, particularly in Australian motorsport. Is this driving the interest in the car? Because it's been a bit of a sleeper for a while.
I don't think we're seeing too many Mark Is on the tracks here these days. You know, if we go back to the great pussy of the day, I mean, what a great car. I mean, we're seeing that car still doing some demonstration laps today.
Yeah, still around.
And more recently been in the Bathurst Museum. You know, very famous car. So yeah, great car to look at.
The other factor that might be influencing it is the restoration costs. These cars are not cheap to get right. I mean, they were known to be rot boxes. They had all these box sections that attracted moisture. There's a lot of leather in there and a lot of wood, and to get all of those cars looking fantastic is now a really big dollar. So are we seeing the prices reflecting those costs now?
That's also true, Joe. We are seeing that with the increased cost of restoration today of Jags. I mean, and again, you know, we're very fortunate. We do have so many good specialists here in Australia to work on these cars. But yeah, definitely the increase of over the years of the restoration costs, that's also brought up the price of the cars.
So can we safely say that if somebody has one of these cars and does it up to original specification, it's one car that might reward the owner and pay back at least some of that money?
I think so. It will reward them in many ways. You know, they're a great looking car, but also they're great driver's car. So, you know, I think that's also part of a reward.
Well, thanks for joining us, Chris, and keep in mind you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons auctions news on the Shannons Club website.
If you like the historic race images of the Jaguar Mark I on the show today, you can find them all at autopics.com.au.
What an incredible car, the Mark I Jaguar. I mean, you look at its influence in terms of what it did in establishing a niche for itself in sales, what it did on the racetrack. I mean, the influence of this car was enormous, wasn't it?
Well, it didn't stop there.
Yeah.
We had a slight interlude after the Mark II with Cortinas and Coopers, but the Australian Falcon GT, there is no doubt that the original planners for that car had the Jaguar in their sights, and when they put it into mainstream production with the XT, guess what? Had Jaguar driving lights in the grille.
You know, wooden steering wheel, fake wood trim in the GT, but still the same thing.
Even the stitch pattern on the seats, all of that sort of thing. It was very much inspired. It moved a little bit away from the US heritage. It was very uniquely Australian because of the influence of those Jags. Just amazing.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So we hope you've enjoyed the remarkable story of the Jaguar Mark I, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV.